Nia was a schoolteacher in Abuja, known for her gentle heart and warm smile. She believed in love the way she believed in her students, with hope, patience, and a deep desire to see the best in people. So when she met Chinedu, she let herself fall. He was charming, soft-spoken, and had this calm way of making her feel seen. It felt like the beginning of something safe, something real. One evening, Chinedu invited her to meet someone important, his childhood friend, Zainab. "She's like a sister to me," he said. But from the moment Nia shook Zainab's hand, she felt it, that tight-lipped smile, the cold eyes pretending to be warm. Zainab was beautiful, rich, and confident in a way that could silence a room. And from day one, she treated Nia like she didn't belong. Zainab questioned everything. "You're a teacher?" she asked with a tone that felt like an insult. She interrupted when Nia spoke. She laughed at her jokes, not because they were funny, but to mock. And Chinedu, he stayed quiet, always quiet, like he didn't see it or didn't want to. Still, Nia stayed. She believed love could fix things. She thought, maybe Zainab just needs time. Maybe if I'm kind enough, good enough, strong enough, she'll see I'm not her enemy. But Nia's first mistake was thinking her silence would protect her. What she didn't know was, her silence was exactly what Zainab counted on. At first, Nia thought it was just respect. The way Chinedu listened when Zainab spoke, how he never argued, never interrupted. But the more time she spent around them, the more she saw something wasn't right. Chinedu didn't just listen, he obeyed. He flinched when she walked into a room, like her presence alone could crush him. He always seemed tense, like he was waiting for permission to breathe. At dinners, Zainab did all the talking. She ordered for everyone, including Chinedu. If he tried to speak, she'd cut in, finish his sentences, or just give him a look that made his mouth shut again. Once, Nia tried asking him a simple question, "What's your dream?" And Zainab answered before he could even blink. "He's not the dreaming type," she laughed. And Chinedu just looked down, silent. Nia started to wonder if she was really in a relationship with one person or two. Every moment with Chinedu felt like it came with Zainab's shadow. He was kind to Nia in private, sweet even, but in public, around Zainab, he became someone else. Quieter, smaller, afraid. It confused Nia. Was this love? Was this what a relationship was supposed to feel like? She wanted to believe Chinedu cared, and maybe he did. But caring without courage can feel a lot like betrayal. Zainab didn't just have power, she was the power. And Chinedu, he had given up his voice to her a long time ago. Nia saw it now. Zainab controlled everything, even him, even his silence. Chinedu's birthday was supposed to be a beautiful night. Nia spent days planning her gift, a handmade journal filled with little notes, poems, and memories. Each page was a piece of her heart. She wanted him to know how much he meant to her, how deeply she cared. She even tied it with a red ribbon, nervous but excited to give it to him. The party was at a fancy restaurant, filled with about 20 of Chinedu's friends and a few business people. And of course, Zainab was there, dressed in diamonds, walking like she owned the world. Nia waited until the cake had been cut before quietly handing Chinedu the journal. "I made this for you," she said softly. He took it in his hands and looked down at it. He didn't say much, just nodded. Before Nia could even smile, Zainab's voice cut through the room. "A journal?" she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Is this what poor women give men now?" Her laugh was sharp, cruel. Some people laughed with her, unsure, awkward. Nia's face burned with shame, but she kept her voice calm. "It's personal. I made it with love." That's when it happened. Zainab stepped forward and, without warning, slapped Nia across the face. The sound was loud. The room went silent. Everyone froze. And Chinedu? He didn't say a word, didn't touch Nia, didn't even look at Zainab. He just looked down at the journal in his hands, like nothing had happened. Nia stood there, shocked. Her cheek burned. But what hurt more was his silence. The man she loved, the man she thought would protect her. He didn't stand up. He didn't stop it. He just disappeared into his silence. In that moment, something inside Nia cracked. Not just from the slap, but from the realization that she was alone. Not because there weren't people in the room, but because the one person who was supposed to care didn't move, didn't speak. She had brought her heart in pages and left with her pride in pieces. After the slap, Nia went home in silence, Her cheek still stung, but the real pain was deeper. She kept checking her phone, hoping Chinedu would call, or text, or show up at her door. Maybe he'd say, "I'm sorry." Maybe he'd say, "I didn't know what to do, but I care." But nothing came. Not a single word. Days passed, then a week, and still silence. What made it worse was what she saw online. Zainab had posted a picture of herself, smiling like nothing ever happened. The caption read, "Some people know their place. Others get reminded." Nia stared at the screen, heart pounding. It wasn't just a post. It was a message, a warning, a laugh in her face. Nia sat on the floor of her small apartment and cried, not because of the slap, not even because of Zainab, but because Chinedu let it happen, because the man who once held her hand now held his tongue. He didn't defend her. He didn't care enough to speak. That silence felt like a knife. She thought about everything she gave, her time, her heart, her trust. And now, nothing. No closure, no respect, just quiet. But somewhere between the tears, something inside her changed. The sadness turned into anger. The pain turned into power. She stood up, wiped her face, and started packing her things. She wasn't running away. She was moving forward. With every folded shirt, with every packed box, Nia was saying goodbye. Not just to Chinedu, but to the girl who once believed love meant staying silent. That girl was gone. Nia left that apartment with tears in her eyes, but a fire in her chest. She didn't know exactly where she was going, but she knew this. The next time they heard her name, it wouldn't be as the girl who got slapped. It would be as the woman who rose. Nia left Abuja with nothing but a suitcase, a heavy heart, and a mind full of questions. She didn't know anyone in Jos, but that was the point. She needed a place where no one knew her as the girl who got slapped, where she could start again without the weight of that night following her everywhere. She joined a tech boot camp, something she'd always been curious about but never had the time or confidence to try. At first, it felt strange. Everything was new. Lines of code replaced her lesson plans. She didn't understand half of it, but she showed up every day, quiet, focused, determined. Her days became full of logic, learning and building. Her nights, they became quiet planning sessions. She stopped explaining herself to people. She stopped defending her choices. No more long texts, no more waiting for anyone to care. She learned to pour her feelings into projects instead of people. One evening, while coding alone in a small room, she had an idea. What if there was a space for women like her? Women who were hurt, silenced, embarrassed, and too afraid to speak. Not everyone gets slapped in public. Some women are crushed slowly, silently, and no one sees it. No one helps. So she built something, a small app. It wasn't fancy at first, but it had a name that gave her chills when she typed it. HerVoice, a safe place for women to share their stories, get support, find help. No judgment, no shame, just freedom. As the app came to life, so did Nia. Every line of code felt like a piece of her healing. Every message sent through the app felt like a small victory, not just for her, but for every woman who had ever been made to feel small. Nia had once been destroyed by silence. Now, she was using it to build something powerful. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She didn't go back to prove a point. She just created something that spoke louder than any words ever could. And this time, silence was her weapon, not her cage. Months passed, and HerVoice started to grow faster than Nia ever imagined. What began as a simple app built in a quiet room in Jos suddenly caught the world's attention. Women were signing up from all over, sharing their stories, finding help, finding each other. The silence that once crushed them was now connecting them. Soon, NGOs reached out, then government ministries, then came the celebrities, women with big names and even bigger platforms. They spoke about HerVoice on TV, shared it on social media, called it a lifeline. Nia watched it all with tears in her eyes, not because she needed the fame, but because she knew what it meant. It meant the pain wasn't wasted. Then one morning, while checking her emails, she saw a name she hadn't thought about in a long time. Zainab. For a second, Nia froze. It didn't feel real, but there it was, clear as day. Zainab had filled out the ambassador application form on the HerVoice website. She wrote about empowering women, about being passionate for the cause. She even attached a photo, smiling, polished, pretending. Nia stared at the screen for a long time. Part of her wanted to delete it, block her, pretend it never happened. But another part, the stronger part, smiled. She clicked approve interview, not out of revenge, but something sweeter: power, peace, growth. This wasn't about getting back at Zainab. This was about Nia standing on a stage that Zainab once tried to push her off. Now, the same woman who humiliated her in front of 20 people was trying to join her mission, her movement, her platform. Nia didn't need to clap back. She didn't need to explain. She just sat there, calm and quiet, and approved the application with a small grin. Because sometimes the best response isn't loud. It's rising so high that the ones who once silenced you have to knock on your door to be heard. The lights were bright, the stage was grand, and there, standing in the middle of it all, was Nia, confident, glowing, no trace of the woman who once cried quietly in her apartment. She was at the Global Women's Tech Summit in Lagos, speaking to a room filled with leaders, founders, and changemakers from around the world. And this time, she wasn't the one listening. She was the one being heard. Nia wore a deep blue suit, her natural hair in a bold crown. Her voice didn't shake. Her story didn't hide. She talked about silence, survival, and the power of building something from pain. She spoke about HerVoice and how thousands of women had found strength because one woman refused to stay quiet. As she stood under the spotlight, she glanced at the crowd, and there they were, Chinedu and Zainab, sitting in the back, still, unmoving. Their faces looked calm on the outside, but Nia could feel the tension, the stiffness, the memory. They clapped when everyone else clapped, smiled when everyone else smiled, but their eyes didn't shine, because they knew, deep down, this moment wasn't theirs. It never was. The woman they once tried to break was now standing taller than they had ever imagined, and no slap, no silence, no mocking words could undo it. Nia didn't look away. She didn't flinch. She kept talking, louder, clearer, stronger. She spoke for the women who had been laughed at, pushed aside, ignored. She spoke for the girl who once held out a handmade journal and got slapped in return. That girl had become this woman. When her speech ended, the room rose in applause, loud, proud, thunderous. Chinedu clapped too. So did Zainab. But they knew, painfully, truthfully, this applause wasn't for them. It never would be. The summit had ended, and the crowd was still buzzing. People wanted selfies, handshakes, interviews. But Nia slipped backstage for a moment of quiet. She needed to breathe, let it all sink in. She had just shared her truth with the world, and they had clapped for it, clapped for her. Then, from the corner of her eye, she saw him, Chinedu. He looked older, not in years, but in weight, like life had pressed hard on him. He walked slowly toward her, eyes unsure, hands in his pockets like he didn't know what to do with them. Nia stood still, not afraid, not angry, just calm. He opened his mouth. "Nia," he said softly, like her name was something he hadn't earned the right to say. "I didn't know how to stop her," he whispered. Nia looked at him for a long second, not with hate, but with truth. "You didn't need to stop her," she replied, her voice steady. "You just needed to stand with me." Silence. And not the kind that used to crush her. This one was heavier on him. She turned and walked away, heels clicking against the floor, head held high. She didn't look back. Chinedu stayed right where he was, silent, again, just like that day at his birthday party, just like all the days after, still. But this time, Nia wasn't waiting for him to speak. She didn't need his apology, didn't need his guilt. She had found something bigger, her voice. And he was still learning what silence really costs. Chinedu thought staying silent would protect him, that if he just stayed out of the drama, everything would settle on its own. But silence has a price, and slowly he began to pay it. After the summit, things changed. People started asking questions about the slap, about the way he just stood there, about why a man with a voice chose not to use it when it mattered most. His friends stopped calling. Business partners kept their distance. No one said it out loud, but he could feel it. The respect was gone. Then came the Zainab scandal. It started small. Rumors, screenshots, anonymous posts online. But it exploded fast. Financial fraud, intimidation, manipulation. People who once praised her now avoided her name. She tried to clean it up, but the internet never forgets. Sponsors dropped her. Invitations disappeared. Her power faded. Just like that. And Chinedu? He was right next to her through it all. The man who once stayed quiet during a slap now looked like a shadow of himself. His name was whispered, not with admiration, but with warning. He became that guy, the one who stood there and let it happen. Meanwhile, Nia was rising. She made the Time Africa 30 under 30 list. Headlines called her a voice for the voiceless. Universities invited her to speak. Women lined up just to hug her, to say thank you. Her pain had become power. Her silence turned into something that shook the world. People didn't just talk about her app anymore. They talked about her story, about the night of the slap, about the man who said nothing, about what it meant to stay silent when it counted most. Nia became a lesson in strength. Chinedu became a lesson in what silence can cost a man. And every time someone hears her story, they remember not just the woman who rose, but the man who didn't. Today, Nia stands in front of a classroom, not as a schoolteacher, but as a tech mentor, a healer, and a living story of what it means to rise. Her days are filled with young women learning to code, to build, to believe. She teaches more than software. She teaches strength, confidence, power. One afternoon, after class, a shy student raised her hand and asked, "Miss Nia, what made you start all this?" Nia paused. She looked around at the curious faces, at the bright eyes waiting for an answer. She could have said something neat, something professional, like, "I saw a gap in the market," or "I wanted to empower women." But she didn't. She smiled gently and said, "A slap, and a man too afraid to speak." The room went completely silent. But this time, the silence didn't sting. It didn't shame her. It didn't shrink her. It was the kind of silence that comes when truth walks into the room and sits down, heavy, honest, real. She let it hang in the air for a moment before she continued. "But that's not the full story. I stayed down for a little while, yes. But then I got up. I built something. I found my voice. And once I did, I realized it was never meant to be small." The girls nodded slowly. Some smiled. A few wiped quiet tears. Nia had once been broken by silence. Now she owned it. And this time, every pause, every quiet moment belonged to her.